Hey everybody, this is Michelle.
And this is Julie.
Welcome to a Blonde, a Brunette, and a Mike podcast. What is our podcast all about, you ask?
Well, we're two 50-something women with life experience and, plenty to say.
Which is exactly what we're going to do right now.
Hey y'all. I'm sitting here with Miss Kelly.
That's me.
That's her. And we haven't seen each other in, it's probably been a couple weeks.
Really?
Yeah. I was gone. You were gone.
Yeah.
Then you were gone again.
Yeah, that's
And then
true.
you were gone longer than you're supposed to be.
That is true.
I did miss her.
She missed me.
I did miss her. And you know what, everybody? It is, it's fall, y'all. It's sweater weather.
I hate
and
that.
I hate it.
I hate the whole sweater weather. It's like all over social media.
Really?
Yeah.
Just got a new one I got to show you. But it makes me look really big and boxy, but it looks so cozy.
Yeah.
So I haven't taken it back yet.
Yeah, I don't mind the sweaters and the cozy and all of that. It's the everything outside.
Yeah. Well, I noticed the other day, it was like, I don't know if it's because when we get older, I've noticed this for probably the last 10 years or so, where I can't get warm. It's like the weather's wet. It's like cold wet.
Yeah.
It's not like freezing, but it's cold wet, and it's like you can't get warm. So I don't do well with that.
I have noticed this year though more than others, and I don't know why. If it's because I'm being more observant or just it's more noticeable. The colors
Vibrant
in the foliage. I mean, it's not like the Midwest where there's so many different colors, but there's actually a lot in the Pacific Northwest.
You know what I used to say instead of foliage?
What?
Foliage.
Foliage.
Foliage. I think you might have corrected me on that.
Foliage.
I
don't know.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Well, it's Halloween time and, or harvest festival time, depending upon how you like to look at it, right?
It's Halloween.
It's freaking Halloween. And I have... Yeah. Michelle, you're scaring me.
Well, either that or, it could be other sounds, but those are supposed to be scary sounds.
Well, last year we did an episode that was with a bunch of haunted stories.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, remember that one? That was super fun.
Real
they
were
haunted
real stories. Yeah.
From our state.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually ran across a lot that were from other places too. But we were talking about this year for Halloween or All Hallows Eve or whatever, that it would be kind of cool to learn something different or to share something a little bit different than we had before. Also real, but Michelle and I were talking about the Salem Witch Trials.
Yes.
And just doing the research on the Salem Witch Trials, it's kind of a little different than I even had thought that it was.
Yeah.
So...
Well, let me ask you this before we get into what it was.
Yeah.
What did you think that it was?
I thought
what did you know or what did you envision about the Salem Witch Trials?
Well, first of all, I knew it was Salem, Massachusetts. What? Salem, Mass. It's called the town's called something different now, I guess, where a lot of this stuff had happened. But there's actually a really concise timeline on when all this stuff happened. And I thought it was more like an era, like there was so much going on where, in medieval times, in Europe in the 1400s and 1500s and stuff, there was a lot of concern about witchcraft and about sorcery and things like that. I just thought it was part of the same thing, and then Puritans mostly, it sounds like, lived in that particular area.
Of Massachusetts.
Yeah. And, they were just more hardcore about it, is what I figured.
Yeah.
But it's actually a little bit different than that. And so anyway, I just thought it'd be kind of cool that we talked about it because it's truly stuff that has happened in our history.
Well, yeah, just for that reason right there, because I kind of had the same illusions in my head about the Salem Witch Trials. People were killed and, they were hung and it was a place and it really was a thing, but didn't really know the history behind it. So,
well, when we were talking about redheads a few episodes ago, we were talking about how redheads were looked upon as being potentially evil or, possessed witchy tendencies, those kinds of things. So we did talk about that a little bit, and I imagine that there was some of that going on here too, but that's not really how it started.
No.
Yeah. So way back in 1490, I was starting to sing an Indie Irie song way back in 1619, but this is 1692. That during the spring of 1692, there were these girls that were in the Salem Village in Massachusetts, and they were claiming to be possessed, by the devil, or were acting really strange, and everybody was scared of them because they thought that they perhaps were possessed by the devil.
And they accused other local women.
Yeah.
Too.
So you
of
can
witchcraft.
You can kind of maybe mention these two. There was two little girls. They were little, like 11 and 9.
9 and 11. Yeah.
That this kind of started out with. So what were they doing?
There was an affliction at that time.
Not the T-shirt. The Affliction brand. Sorry.
No, I don't know that brand, but okay. But no, not the T-shirt.
That's the Jim Tan Laundry brand. Sorry.
As if you don't know, now you know.
You don't know, now you know.
That were being suffered by a lot of the Salem residents, and it was a fungus found in rye, wheat, and other grain-based cereals.
But they didn't find that out till
They didn't find it out till later. So, but yeah, so it would cause illusions, vomiting, convulsions, those types of things. So this was, later studied and found. So the idea or the theory is that is probably what was going on. So it seemed as they were possessed.
So they were probably, making bread or something, and there was this fungus was maybe in something that was like with mold, or how you get, like penicillin's made out of mold, that kind of thing, but it was in the, there's no chemicals.
It was
a fungus. Back then. It was a fungus, right?
Yeah, that was found in those. Yeah.
But it was in the grains and things you said, right? So they were probably making breads or soups or things like that, because the first two that got sick and started exhibiting these behaviors, it transitioned into several people. And it wasn't all just one family either. It was several different people, young girls, what have you. Probably anybody who was eating this stuff, but nobody knew really what it was.
Women, men, and children.
Yeah. So as this is spring of 1992. Well, hopefully it didn't happen then. Spring of 1692. Yeah. And that's important to note, because this period, like we were talking before about how the Salem Witch Trials, we thought was like a thing, right? It was like I just figured it was going on for a long period of time. And really it was like a year and a half that a lot of this stuff was happening then. So
and the hysteria did grow.
Yeah.
The hysteria, because these girls accused several other women of witchcraft,
right?
Probably who were exhibiting similar symptoms type of a thing. And as that hysteria spread, there was a special court that they convened in Salem to hear the cases.
The general court.
Yeah, to see what was going on.
General court, yeah.
And the first convicted witch, her name was Bridget Bishop, and she was hung that June. So
she was just a little kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the 11-year-old. So she was 11, 12 years old when something like that happened. They talked a lot here when I was doing some of this research. Some of the notes that we have here are coming from history.com, by the way.
Yeah.
And I always thought, and I know it's probably from movies and things that I've seen, that they were always burned at the stake. And they were burned at the stake. Not all of them were. A lot of them were hung, but it was you've seen it in movies where they have like a big public display where everybody in the village watches what's happening, and they're cheering on for it's just so barbaric, but cheering on for the people to be hung and everything. That's kind of what I envision having happened. But I saw something when I was researching this that showed one of the people that had been accused of the witchcraft, it wasn't the first one, it was down the road, maybe 6-8 months or something, was burned at the stake. She was lit on fire at the stake and burned right there.
And there were 150 more.
Right.
After this first case, there were then 18 more, and then it grew to 150 men, women, and children that were accused
Right.
of this over the next several months. And it was Salem's Gallows Hill.
Yeah.
That just sounds scary.
Well, that's where they were putting them all and holding them as prisoners. And I think that the holding them as prisoners was, I don't know why they were doing that and not killing all of them at one time, but they ended up releasing, some of them too after a while. And I think it's because the hysteria had stepped back. There's probably a lot of different reasons why that had happened, but
you know what I think? This is just Michelle's perception. So we're stepping out of the history.com right now.
I love it when Michelle gives me her perspective.
But I mean, really, if you think about it, they probably started using this to just get rid of people.
Yeah.
That they didn't know that for other things. Like, we're just going to accuse them that they're accuse them of witchcraft. Let's get them out of here.
And
let's burn them, kill them, hang them, whatever.
They had little tests and things that they would do. And it's like, you might not even be able to pass whatever the test would be. You couldn't really necessarily pass the test. And it'd be like, oh, can't pass. I guess you're a witch.
Yeah.
And then they would end up in the gallows, or they would end up getting, hung or burned at the stake, or whatever was happening. It's really, when you stop and think about all of this, it's pretty horrific, because it's not a lot different than like what you saw in World War II, as an example, with the mass hysteria towards people that were Jewish, for example, and how they were being accused of not being the pure race, and all of the things that were happening they were rounded up like cattle. They weren't treated like human beings.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, we're talking about this because it's Halloween and witch trials and all of that, but yeah, to your point that you just made, and then in the United States with slavery and lynching, hanging, all of it, just same type of thing, these mobs and this whole hysteria of accusing them of things that they would do, and just using it as an excuse to kill these people.
Well, I think some of that might directly relate to when people don't have information, when they are ignorant to something, they create their own story or their own perception of things, and then they'll act upon that, because that's the way that they can combat some of that fright that they might have, or try to regain control maybe in a village of what's going on in the village. It's they put these courts together back in 1692. I'm sure that the courts were all made of men, and a lot of the people that were killed were women and children, but there were some men, but it was for the most part women, is what it looked like to me from one of the things that I read. One
of the men was they crushed him
with rocks,
with stones. Yeah,
I saw a picture of it,
like heavy boulders.
Yeah, they just laid him down and put all the boulders on top of him.
Yeah, and it was because he refused to say he was guilty. Right. He refused to do that at his court trial.
I think
so. They killed him.
I think a lot of people were tortured until they finally. It's just like anything else, right? Until they want to give up, and they say, "Fine, I'm a witch," so they'll stop being tortured. But then they're getting hung. So it was like they were going to get hung anyway. Yeah. So they just wanted the pain to stop, I guess. And so they were admitting to things that were not necessarily true. Right. And coerced, I should say, into things that were not necessarily true. So why do you think, beyond what we were just talking about, there is like mass hysteria when it comes to things like this? I mean, even going back to this time frame being 300 years ago, it really was not that long ago.
Well, there's mass hysteria right now in the United States because of the presidential race.
I know. How many days left?
Well,
it's like a week and a half.
Because it spreads.
I know.
You talk with people, and you hear the stories and this, that, and the other, and it gets missed in translation when somebody else is telling it to somebody else. And I don't know. There's just.
We also did an episode on this whole fake news and deep fakes and all this kind of stuff. And I mean, we're kind of diving off of the
subject,
the subject a little bit, but I mean, it's a very appropriate
hysteria.
Yeah. Hysteria. It's something where now we're getting closer and closer to the election, and there's, I don't want to say panic, but it feels like there is this major push towards getting people that are, quote, undecided to make a decision.
Absolutely.
And so there's so much talk about like the different groups of people that are undecided, or they're talking about how black men are going to be voting for Donald Trump because they don't feel like maybe Kamala's done enough for them. I don't really know why that would be, and then the election interference stuff that you are starting to see with ballot boxes. I saw something on the news today about a ballot box was burnt.
Yeah.
I think it was in Georgia.
I just really think, I know somewhat at times get the label of being a conspiracy theorist. But
where's your hat?
I mean,
Where's your
truly,
little hat?
I mean, I am not looking forward to the next 3 weeks.
No.
At all.
So do you have any thought processes or predictions on kind of what you anticipate? If
I anticipate mass hysteria,
one way or another,
one way or the other. Yeah, one
Okay.
way or another. There's going to be things out there that are going to be happening. I don't know what they are, but I just think that there's too much hanging in the balance.
Mm-hmm.
For there not to be one way or the other.
I do worry when you start seeing a lot of some of the rights, so like civil rights and things like that being pulled back. You know, I feel like we've taken a lot of steps back as a country.
Yes.
And there's such a level of divisiveness that people aren't really talking to each other. Michelle, it's been like this for 8 years.
Yeah.
It's really, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I guess, it was like we were in the heat of a lot of it. And then you get into when the last election happened, and then the insurrection stuff that happened at the Capitol and the people that died there. Nobody's really talking too much about the fact that these things took place. And it blows my mind that we have someone with the level of ethics that we do running for office. And, he's a convicted felon 34 times over. And it's like, people make mistakes, right?
Yeah.
But 34 times, that's just when you're caught. And then I was saying to you, how is that going to work? Because if he's a convicted felon, he, can't go to Canada.
Right.
So does he just do Zoom calls when he's talking to the prime minister?
I don't know.
These are questions and it sounds like a silly question, but do you think anybody's going to even ask that question?
I don't know. We're just rounding out to the finish line here. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's going to be a good feeling.
I already kind of don't feel that way. I just, with the divisiveness, and you don't want to have conversations about this kind of stuff with people. At least I don't really want to have
me neither.
Conversations. We keep it kind of on the high level, I think, with a lot of the discussions that we're having, because it's easier to do that and like in social media, I don't post anything about anything. And I'm more than willing to talk with somebody about their thought process when it comes to the issues, whatever they may be, whether they're fiscal issues or whether they're socially related issues. It has nothing really to do with who the candidate is in my mind, except for the fact that I worry that the things that are really important to me are, and to a lot of other people probably too, are going to just go by the wayside. I'm worried about Handmaid's Tale life. And I know that sounds very, extreme, but have you watched Handmaid's Tale?
No.
Oh, yeah. Well, now you're going to want to.
No, I don't. I've heard a lot about it. Like I hear about it, I feel all the time, but no, it's never piqued my interest to watch it.
Well, it's kind of an interesting story because it's talking about, it's not post-apocalyptic, there I go again. I can't say that word, post-apocalyptical. It's not like that. It's more like a fundamental government has taken over when there's been, and I don't even know if the beginning of it is that there's some sort of a virus or something that goes around because a lot of the women aren't able to get pregnant. And so people that are able to get pregnant are treated differently than people that are not. And so, people are put into, you could call it slavery, I guess. It is slavery, and they're not allowed to go anywhere. They're not allowed to do anything. They're forced to have sex with, the people that are supposed to have babies, the people in positions of authority. But it's very dark. It's kind of dark. And so obviously it's a fiction thing. It's not something that is happening, but and if our friend here was to win, it's not like that would happen today or tomorrow. But then you see that, Project 2025 thing, and I'm just like, holy shit. Who's to say that this wouldn't happen down the road if we're not careful?
Yeah.
I don't know. I do worry about that. I worry about my future daughter-in-law in Texas. I worry about a lot of things.
Yeah.
So I think I worry too much.
Well, if she's not a witch in Salem,
right,
I think we're good.
Yeah.
Back to that.
I know. It's like we haven't really talked a lot of politics lately.
No.
So that's probably a good thing, just because there's just there's just too much to absorb.
I think it's interesting how the word, hysteria came up and then it went down that way in regard to the election. But I think, it's how that grows is by those situations and you go to your neighbor and whatever.
And people making assumptions about things, or the hysteria grows when there is a lack of knowledge or there is a fear. And Salem Witch Trials was exactly like that, and as it turns out, now in the modern day, we would have been able to ascertain, I would think, that, there's something going on with these girls. They're not possessed. They've maybe eaten something or something else has happened, but they didn't really have the ability to do that then.
There was a local doctor there back to in Salem, who some of these girls that were having these fits, some of it was violent contortions, uncontrollable outbursts and screaming. He diagnosed them with bewitchment.
So is that a medical diagnosis?
So I'm sure that is part of what that growing hysteria was.
Well, and
then it took off.
Okay, so when you think about it, though, this doctor has potentially created this entire thing by not knowing the answer to the question and basically creating an answer.
Yeah.
And so the hysteria has built on that. When you think about it that way, that's pretty scary.
Yeah.
That one doctor,
William Griggs.
William Griggs.
That
motherfucker started the Salem Witch Trials.
As the story, continues in late February, this is of the next year, so 1693. Okay. This started in 1692. So 1693, there were arrest warrants issued. There was Caribbean slave.
Oh, yeah.
Tituba. Along with two other women that the girls accused them of bewitching them.
Right. So they were trying to get themselves off the hook.
So, probably. Yes.
And then these slaves are coming from another country that nobody really knows anything about. Way back in 1619. I'm thinking slavery started here in 1619 on the East Coast. And I'm singing a song in my head. But so this is, how many, 70 years later. Something like that. But people were still coming probably. And their witchcraft was, or I wouldn't say witchcraft, but maybe it was witchcraft, but there was a lot of that coming from Africa. We didn't have Christianity. We didn't have all that stuff there. So when people were coming here, they're coming here with their own beliefs.
Right.
And, obviously instilling those maybe in, the people that were around them, or the people who were enslaved had knowledge of different things that were foreign to the people that were here, the Puritans that were enslaving them, kind of a thing. And I think that they maybe were afraid for that.
Sure.
So, and, it's very easy to place the blame for some of these things on someone else as opposed to your kid, right?
Sure.
In 1692 even.
So that timeline then, February of 1692, that's when all the accusations began.
Right.
And then next month, move forward, that's when all the hysteria started spreading. In April of that same year, the first man was accused.
Okay.
And then by May, people were dying in jail.
Yeah.
At that point, in June to August, that's when the trials started happening and hangings started happening. People were then being killed.
Yep.
And in the fall of that year, September, October, that's kind of when you were talking before about how it was kind of dying off. It was becoming unpopular. People weren't quite so sure about everything that was happening, probably because so much of it was growing. And like I said, I think probably they were just using this as a reason to get rid of people in some ways.
So they did release a bunch of people that had been left in jail, but nobody ever was brought back to being whole. Like they were accused of something, so they probably lived their life with that hanging over their head.
Yeah.
Because no one ever said, oops, my bad. They just let them out of jail and get back into the popular society. And
can you imagine like if something like that happened now?
Well, it's not, if you think about it, what would be something that would be similar that would happen in today's day and age, not about being a witch, but someone is canceled or shunned from society, or it would be similar to something like that, because you wouldn't see people burning other people at the stake.
No, that's why I say, could you imagine something like that happened now. Of course, we're in a time where it wouldn't, but that's why I just like bringing it back to that.
In other countries, it might not be that way.
True.
I mean, they could very well. In some countries, you get in trouble for not covering up your face.
Get your hand cut off if you steal.
Yeah. I mean, I guess there's probably not a lot of theft going on in Iran or wherever that's at. I mean, it works, right? Yeah. Not that I'm saying that it's a good thing by any means, but kind of works.
Yeah.
So, well, I don't really have anything more to say.
I just thought I'd throw that timeline out there, just, as we're wrapping up, just to kind of see how year and a half, how it started, what it was, what people did, what some of the things were from. So, some illness that was happening from grain-based food and accusations, and not a fun time.
No.
Not a fun time.
And no one there really to
And everybody was
you.
probably scared of each other.
And they're probably worried that they may have some kind of like twitch in their eye because they're tired and someone's going to think they're a witch.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously.
Probably wasn't a lot of, public going out and different things, you know.
They're Puritans. I don't think they did a lot of that anyway.
Yeah.
Probably were home a lot.
Probably home a lot.
Yeah. All right. Well, all of you people out there getting ready for Halloween, hopefully you have a costume.
Mm-hmm.
Belle is going to be her own version of a Salem witch, and she has created this costume that she hasn't even quite decided what it's going to be yet.
I'll take a picture, show y'all. We'll see.
We'll put it up there. And I'm not a big Halloween person as a general rule. Like I'm one of those bah humbug people early, and I turn off all my lights, and I don't want anybody coming to my door. Because I'm worried they're going to slip and fall and then someone's going to sue me. I mean, that's really what's going on out here.
Is that the day and age we live in now?
Well, not only that, but
much.
I just don't feel like talking to anybody.
Yeah, no, we don't get many around here.
No, we don't. When we were in Mill Creek, we would get like, 200.
That's because you were in a good neighborhood.
Yeah, people get dropped off
We lived
there.
that my kids. We would... you were in the neighborhood that my kids wanted to trick or treat in. So we would take them over to the Mill Creek area and drop them off, and they would come home with regular size candy bars, not just the bite size.
The last year that we were there, I got all the regular size candy bars, and then and they were gone like within just minutes, practically. You know, it's like, and then so I would just take the rest of whatever I had, and I stuck it out on the front porch. Take whatever you want.
Yeah,
leave some for the next person. And literally, these kids, probably 13-year-old kids or something, they're coming and just dumping the whole thing out. Did you
ever have your bag of candy stolen when you were a kid?
No.
No.
Mm-mm. But you know what I did with my own is I would let them fill up like a big cup with all of their favorites.
Oh, yeah.
And then I would give them money for the rest.
Oh.
Because I didn't want them eating it all.
Oh, really?
No.
Oh, I would just like dump your bags out, eat whatever you want, as much as you want for the night. Like we just power ate it for a couple days.
Yeah.
So I could be done with it.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of spreading it out. No, just eat that shit. Be done with it.
They got their cup full, you know.
Yeah.
And I saved, not going to lie, I, of course,
I
kept
ate
the
plenty
Ways
too.
And, yeah.
What is your favorite candy?
I would say I really don't eat a lot of that stuff now. But if
back in the day, what was your favorite?
Milky Ways or the Hershey bars.
Yeah.
Or maybe Reese's peanut butter cups. Those were the ones that I would never have like the sweet tart. I don't like any of that kind of gummy bears. I don't like that stuff.
Yeah.
So,
you like stuff with chocolate.
I like all kinds of chocolate.
Yes.
I do.
Everything chocolate.
Everything chocolate.
I liked Almond Joys.
Really?
And Snickers.
Okay.
Those were two of my faves.
I would have saved those
or
for
Mounds.
you.
Mounds because it's dark chocolate.
Yeah.
With the coconut, you cannot go wrong.
And it has a almond or something.
Sometimes you feel like a nut.
Bump, bump.
Sometimes you don't.
Bump, 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 bump.
Peter Paul, Almond Joy's got nuts. Mounds don't.
Okay, we gotta stop. All right, everybody, have a wonderful Halloween. Turn on your lights.
Yeah.
Give out some good candy to the kids, and wear an outfit.
Happy Halloween.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Have a good one.